found the joy of honey squirrels and eating them.
I'd like to call back the order of the Pasco County Board of County Commission meeting of September 3rd, 2024. Please silence all electronic devices and mute your microphones. And this meeting time is 5:15 p.m. Please rise for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
O merciful Creator, your hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us thankful for your loving providence and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Where is he? Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
District 2 Commissioner Wakeman is not present at this time. District 3 Commissioner Starkey.
Here.
District 4 Commissioner Yeager.
Here.
District 5 Commissioner Mariano.
Here.
District 1 Chairman Oakley.
Here. Let the record reflect that we have 4 members in present and an quorum. Okay? Are we ready? Or I got to do mine first, right? All right. This is the first public meeting for adopt the fiscal year 2025 budget for the Board of County Commissions of Pasco County, Florida. Citizens will be provided an opportunity to speak during the public comment section of this hearing. Chairman. Ms. Farrell, do we have proof of notice of the, I don't know what that is. It's a different name.
They changed it.
Notice of this meeting?
Chairman and members of the board, notification for this meeting was provided in the trim or the truth and millage notices mailed to each property owner.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Commissioner Wakeman is now on the dais.
Okay, thank you. Better catch up here. In accordance with the Florida statute 200.065, is the recommended millage rate. First issue to be discussed would be the recommended millage rate and the percentage of changes from the rollback rate. Ms. Farrell.
All right, before we dig into this, did we want to look at the PowerPoint presentation or do we want to just move straight to voting? I'm okay either way.
PowerPoint? PowerPoint? Okay, PowerPoint.
All right. So here's a quick agenda for tonight. We're going to talk through the purpose of our public hearings, a reminder on what our strategic goals and priorities were going into this budget cycle, our budget assumptions that are underlaying our tentative budget, what the overall tentative budget looks like, our taxable assessed values, the way in which our general fund is allocated, what our capital budget looks like, and then the next steps in this process. So as a friendly reminder, Florida statute requires that we hold 2 public hearings. The first one is tonight, and then the second one will be later in September in 2 weeks. And through this process, we will adopt tentative millage rates and then the budget by way of resolution. And as a reminder, what's presented in front of you is based off of what you all adopted in July during trim. And so you'll see those millage rates and then the associated tentative budget. All right, so our strategic goals laid out for us back in January: small business initiatives and process streamlining, pedestrian safety, maintaining our reserve limits across all of our major funds, especially our general fund, and establishing 2 new municipal services taxing units, 1 for parks capital maintenance and 1 for roads rehabilitation services. So again, our budget assumptions in this tentative budget as it's presented to you right now is assuming no change in the operating millage, no change in our fire MSTU millage, no change in the stormwater assessment. We're in the 4th year of our water and wastewater rates, and we are entering into year 6 of our 7 for 7 plan for our solid waste. And then again, as we just mentioned, the establishment of the 2 new MSTUs. All right, so our overall budget for fiscal year 25, as it exists right now, is $2.26 billion. 1.25 of that is operating, 400 million is capital, about 46 million for debt service, and then 554 million in reserves across almost 200 funds. All right. So here's a breakdown via pie chart. So as you can see, the better chunk is our day-to-day, keeping our lights on operations. Smaller chunk there for capital, little sliver for debt service, and then slightly bigger pie for our rainy day reserves. All right, so here's the breakdown of our budget via type of revenue. So the revenue side of that reserve is that fund balance, that first biggest pie. The next sliver that you see on the bottom is our ad valorem taxes. So that includes our general fund taxes, our fire MSTU, the 2 new MSTUs, the permits, fees, and special assessments. So that's like fire inspection fees, our building permit fees, charges for service. That could be things like our utilities and our solid waste. And then what does our budget look like from the expenditure side of the house? So you'll see our physical environment, which again is a lot of our utilities and solid waste, and then our public safety are big components of that. Up at the top are our reserves, so that's the expense side of that fund balance. General government, those are things like our other constitutional officers, my salary's in there, Mike's salary is in there. All right, so final taxable assessed value, so based off our final numbers on July 1st, it was a 14.1% increase in taxable, or in revenue based off taxable assessed value increases. So that was 47.86 more in revenue. The 40% of that allocation to the sheriff was a little over 19 million. We saw an increase to our CRAs in just under $1 million, and our increase to our other TIFs, such as our villages of Pasadena Hills and our Trilocucci, roughly $1.3 million increase. And then that increase did generate roughly $13 million more for our fire MSTU fund. All right, so general fund big picture. So when we look at our general fund, 90% of our fund expenditures are towards keeping the lights on and handling inflation. So what that means is that's basically 90% of our budget is making sure that we can provide the services tomorrow that our citizens have come to expect today. 4% is earmarked for what we've been calling requirements. So these are things like expanding the jail, setting up the D shift for fire rescue. Also on that list would be wage increases for our corrections officers, for our firefighters, and then our pay comp and class study for the rest of our employees. 5% is towards capital infrastructure investments, and about 1% is for what we call business plan initiatives or enhancements. So those could be increasing levels of service or adding additional bodies to maintain levels of service. All right, so just another way to look at that 90% piece of our pie, keeping the lights on. About 52% of that goes to public safety. So that includes the sheriff, that includes corrections, fire rescue, and then the administrative staff supporting our public safety branch. 20% goes towards general government. So again, that's going to be our other constitutional officers like the clerk. And then, of course, you guys got to pay for me, sorry. 6% is for culture and recreation. And then our fund balance up there at 18%. All right, so back here, you'll see that 5% capital. That's going to equate to roughly $31.17 million. The requirements, that was 4% of our budget, and then our enhancements, that 1% of our budget, that equates to $3.2 million. All right, so outside funding. So these are all funded via the general fund, and then just a reminder that anything that is bold and italicized are mandates for us to pay. The non-bolded, non-italicized are at the board's discretion.
Mandated by whom?
Oh, state statute.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so here's how the constitutional officer proposed budgets are sitting based off of everything that the board approved in July. And then we've got a breakout for the sheriff on the next slide. All right, so included in the sheriff's budget is 40 additional deputies. The sheriff is funding 20 new additional deputies out of that, his 40% increase, and then the board is matching that with another 20. And then part of the board's one-time expenses are funding armored SWAT vehicles and vans, upgraded forensics unit, a pole barn, startup funding for GAP insurance, design for an armory, and then a restroom remodel at the gun range. And that number is a little bit different than the last time we spoke to you all. Working with the sheriff's office, we've come up with a $200,000 option for that. All right, and then just a reminder, we're looking at a $1.8 billion 5-year capital plan. This does exclude general fund because we talked about that separately. But the board will only be adopting fiscal year 25. We'd just like to show you our 5-year plan. And then this is a more granular look at transportation engineering, but it's still like a 50,000-foot view. So by program, addressing capacity, major maintenance, pedestrian, safety, intersection, and signals. All right, so these are the tentative millage rates that the board adopted in July as part of the trim process. And again, just a reminder that the budget in front of you is based off of these millage rates. All right, so tonight is our first public hearing. The second public hearing will be September 17th at 5:15 in Newport Richey at the West Pasco Government Center. During the day, I'll be presenting a PowerPoint during the regular session, and then we'll do the final public hearing. And if there are no questions, then I think we're okay to go back to the script.
Any questions? Seeing none? Okay. So we're on page 2, or no?
No, I think
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
let me bring it up now just so we have a discussion.
Okay.
We've got an agenda item we approved today to do a study for engineering with a company for the Hudson Library. After we had a meeting today, I talked to Sean Garvey. When do you think it would get done? He thought it would take about a year to do the full design. Currently, we have that $12 million in the budget. If we look at it to say that it's going to be a year before we even have the design to actually go start to build it, I think we can delay that a year and do an offset. Maybe leave the millage where it is in a sense, because we're going to need to come back with it, but maybe that lets us shrink the road paving MSTU down to a very significant number.
That is a great idea. I like that idea. He said the 12 million is already in the budget, and you're sitting on it?
The
Yeah.
12 million falls under the capital expenditures that Amy showed. So I think what the commissioner is proposing is a reduction in the paving MSTU millage and use that 12 million instead of funding Hudson Library, use it to fund road paving.
What does that take the MSTU on the road millage down to?
We would have to calculate those numbers. I would need some guidance from the board.
So how
as to
much are you
what
talking
level.
about taking away from the MSTU on the road paving?
Well, you get a $12 million savings. You still probably want to keep some of the STU because you still got to pay off the
I would
people
not
paying
recommend a
off.
level lower than what it takes to retire your PVAS debt.
Yeah.
At a minimum, we would need to go back
would
and
just cover that.
calculate that and come back with a corresponding millage. It would be a significant reduction. It's probably, I know it's under 10 million, it's probably 6 to 8 million if we're talking round numbers.
Nice. Love it.
What would that number be? Do we know that number, or we don't know that number?
I don't know it tonight. I can start working on it.
How do we act on that tonight?
We have another hearing.
My recommendation would be you hold the millage level and then we come back.
Just hold it where it is
Hold it
until...
where it is, and then we would come back to you with a proposed number at the adoption based on this guidance.
Okay, all right. Understand that.
But we would cut it to the number you find at the next meeting.
Right. With my understanding then is, and I'm seeing that, I saw at least 3 or 4 head nods.
So we can still make a cut in that budget, Amy, till 17th, right?
Correct.
You just
Correct.
can't go up.
Right, we
Okay.
just can't go up from what was set in July, but we can go down.
But you got to realize in doing that, which that's okay, in doing that, there will be some roads that will be moved out further than...
No,
if-
no, we're just talking about retiring the PVAS debt. Right?
Just the debt of it?
The debt,
Well,
the unpaid debt.
So the main thing is you've got an MSTU in place that we're looking at. Instead of having that MSTU going for the road paving, you take the 12 million from the Hudson Library and you offset it with that 12 million. So it's good because you're not going to be able to spend the money until like October next year anyway. So why would we want to carry that for a bill right now? We don't have to pay it. It's just like tying up money for a whole year. This way we can use it to save money on the overall budget for the taxes that people have to pay.
Okay. All right.
Chair,
Yes.
another thought. What's the PVAS debt, 6 million, 8 million?
Justin Grant tells me it's approximately $6 million.
Why don't we just pull it out of reserve, it's a rainy day fund? Just cut it from there, one-time expense, done.
Where are we on our mandated reserve?
It's a
What percent are we-
recommendation, it's a
I think those
recommendation.
reserves, if I remember right, the reserves were a little bit less than we
16%.
normally would have it, I think.
So your
It's the
current
best
reserve,
management
I don't have the exact, your current reserve levels, right, are sitting slightly higher than what your current reserve policy is.
Oh, it
However-
is? Okay.
However, I
Yep.
caveat that, our recurring expenses do exceed some of our recurring revenue, and namely in a lot of our public safety agreements that we have done to pay for D-shift and other things. So we anticipate drawing down those reserves in the out years.
In those. Okay.
Correct.
Right.
But to Commissioner Waitman's point, it's a policy decision.
Yeah.
Chairman, Mr. Waller, when you say out years, what years? 2, 3, 4? What's
Fiscal
your
year 28.
estimation?
Fiscal year 28.
2028?
Yes, sir.
2028, folks.
We would be down to approximately 54 days reserves at that point, so that would be below your 60-day reserve.
Oh, I got another question on the library, just thinking, Jack. If you took away your capital money and spent it all this year, where are you going to get it when you need it?
That's when you'd have to look at doing the MSTU and putting a number on it the next year. At least you delay it a year before you do it. And you might even decide not to do it at that point, but at least,
What about this? What if we take 6 million from your capital money, whatever amount it is to retire the PVAS debt, and then that lowers the PVAS, but leaves you some of the money, so we don't have to go raising taxes next year to cover it. And we'll look for that other 6 million in many places.
I'm flexible how the staff wants to bring it back, but the
I
main
think
thing is there's a
I'm
$12 million
comfortable with
savings.
staff bringing it back also.
I mean, there's a $12 million savings out there, and Commissioner Waitman's idea is worthy of consideration as well.
So what we're asking is you bring it back to us and show us what's best suited for our citizens of Pasco County. That's what we're asking for.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, where am I at here?
All right, so I think we're at the third time the first page says chairman. So it starts with in accordance.
I'm not up with you. I don't see
The
that.
last thing the chairman said was the Florida statute 200.065. The next paragraph has your name next to it.
Oh, we got through that whole one. Okay, thank you. All right, so
So
chairman,
we're here.
Yeah, I'm lost where we are.
we'll get you
Bottom
back.
section.
You read that.
Yeah, I
You went
read
to the
that.
PowerPoint, so
All right.
we're here.
Bottom section,
Oh.
first page.
Yeah.
All right, so Chairman, members of the board, the aggregate millage rate as advertised on the trim notice was 10.2645 mils, which represents a 13.34% increase from the aggregate rollback rate of 9.2192 mils. The reason the aggregate millage rate is higher is because the total taxable value increased between last year and this year, generating additional revenue levied for the same millage rate. Table 1 in your handout shows the millage rates for the various county levies and a comparison of the recommended millage rates to the rolled back rates and the prior year adopted millage rates. Rather than read this chart into the record, we have provided copies to each commissioner, board records, and members of the audience. Tonight, I would like to ask the commission to adopt the tentative millage rates and total budget. The millage rates adopted tonight are the maximum allowed by Florida law without mailing each property owner an additional notice. The board can reduce the millage rates tonight through the final hearing on September 17th. However, the millage rate cannot be increased. Later in the meeting, should the commission wish to modify the budget, we ask that staff be directed to return on September 17th at the final public hearing with the desired amendments. I'd like to give a summary of the general fund and transportation trust fund budgets, stating the tentative millage rates, the percentage change from the rollback rate, and the reasons for such a change. The tentative millage rate for the general fund is 7.5700 mils, which is a 7.07% increase from the rollback rate of 7.0703. The tentative millage rate is the same as last year's millage rate. The county realized a 14.1% increase in taxable assessed values over the past year. Compared to the current fiscal year, the tentative general fund expenditure budget represents an increase of $94.3 million. The main factors for this include fully funding the sheriff's budget request, including 20 additional deputies, implementing phase 1 of the D shift for rescue personnel, operating expenditures for the expanded detention center, wage increases for the PBA and IAFF unions, and a wage increase based on compensation and classification studies for board and constitutional officer employees. Prior to action by the Florida legislature eliminated the requirement for a mandatory transportation ad valorem tax. No transportation millage was levied last year, and we propose no millage be assessed this year for the Transportation Trust Fund. I would ask that the board accept public comment and then vote on the general fund and the Transportation Trust Fund millage rates and associated budgets. The minimum vote required to levy the general fund millage rate is a simple majority or 3 votes according to maximum millage rate calculations.
Okay. Does anyone wish to speak to the board regarding the general fund and transportation trust fund?
Mr. Chairman, we have folks signed up, not specifically for a particular fund, but for the budget in general. So we would go to that, and the first person signed up is Christy Zimmer.
Name and address for the record.
Christy Zimmer, 3615 Pinecone Court, Land O'Lakes, Florida. It's a sad day we have to be here and ask you, beg you, to reduce the millage rate instead of constantly agreeing to the maximum. A couple years ago, Mr. Wells was in here telling you you had a perfect opportunity to reduce it and you didn't. You maxed it out again. You're actually taxing people out of their homes. As a realtor, I'm dealing with it every day. Between taxes and insurance, people who have been here their whole lives are having to move out of the state because they can't afford to live in their homes in Pasco County anymore. That is a sad, sad thing. Even with our 3% cap on our Save Our Homes, your overinflated assessed values are not okay. They're not fair. And this has got to stop. It's an election year. Do your constituents a favor. Do a reduction, at least if it's a half-assed plan. Do something, because this is wrong. You can't keep doing this to the taxpayers. You've got forgivable loans out there. You're doing tax deferrals. Edison Building, my favorite one to talk about, they haven't paid a dime in taxes since 2013 because they got a $1.5 million abatement. You're deferring the impact fees for the developers. Did you ever think if they were actually paying those on time and not 10 years from now? Or the tax abatements that you're giving out on hundreds of millions of dollars of loans on the economic development plans for all these forgivable loans, how much money that would create in our tax base? Let's stop doing the giveaways and start taking care of the people who actually pay your salaries. A 6-figure salary for a part-time job, maybe look at yourself and take a pay reduction. Nobody out here gets that kind of money. It's not okay. You've got to tighten your purse strings. You've got to cut out the wasteful spending. We have to. Many people can't even afford to go to the grocery store because they have to worry about being able to stay in their homes. Please take some time, look at this budget, cut it where you need to cut it, and save these people's homes.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, Chris Walsh.
Mr. Carvalho, do we defer impact fees?
I'm not aware of that. I know they're due at the time of the certificate of occupancy.
You what?
When a CO is issued on a facility, that is when by law.
Yeah, they don't get a CO unless they pay their impact fees.
Yes.
Correct. Oh, that's true.
We don't defer.
Okay, your name and address, sir.
Chris Walsh, 2327 Criollo Road, Springfield,
Okay.
Florida. I won't take the whole 3 minutes, but congrats to that director. She said everything that we all feel. I'm a member of the Board of Supervisors for the Talavera Community Development District, 798 homes. We just finished our budget this year. We were able to do our O&M at the same level we did last year. I'm asking you for the same thing that she said, same thing. You've got to figure out a way to stop constantly increasing property taxes, or you're going to drive people out of here. So that's all I really have to say to you. I came down here for my constituents back in Talavera, and they all feel the same way. And there's about 1,800 voters there, so remember that on what you think. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Terry Schrader.
Good evening, fellow commissioners. Terry Schrader, 31414 Pasco Road. I have to concur with some of the previous speakers. I think it's time to reduce the millage rate. I applaud some of the discussion you've had. But, back in 2019, the taxable value for Pasco County was $27 billion. It currently sits at $52 billion. So, and I don't believe you've lowered the millage rate to commensurate that high value and the taxable value. But again, there's families that are struggling out there. I can afford my tax bill, but I know there's a lot of young couples out there that can't. And so I implore you to please lower this millage rate to help these families be able to stay in Pasco County. A lot of times during your meetings, you're always talking about affordable housing. You're making it very unaffordable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Cecil Christian.
We're all saying the same thing. The increases in taxes is...
Name and address, sir.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Cecil Christian, 5313 Palmetto Road,
Okay.
Newport Richard. I've seen the property taxes have gone up from 2021 to 2023 by 62%. And now I'm seeing it going from 2023 to 2024 now is another 35% is going up again. And then at this rate, we're not going to be able to keep our property. So something has to be done about the millage rates and other things to reduce this. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to afford to keep our properties. It's just clear. And it's happening all over, so we have to do something about it. Thank you.
Sir, can I ask you a question? Is that right? Real quick.
Right.
Are you aware, and I'm not an expert on this, but on the other homestead exemption that you can put on your property? Can someone describe that one?
I didn't get that. If I'm aware of...
County Attorney, can you describe the extra senior homestead exemption we passed? And let me ask if you have this.
And that's not this year, that would be the next tax year.
Next year.
But the board adopted an optional $50,000 senior tax exemption. Property appraiser's office has all those forms and all those calculations to see if you qualify. It's income limited, but that would, if you apply for it and you qualify for it, that would lower your assessed value of your property, just like the standard homestead exemptions.
Yeah.
So it's an additional.
If you qualify.
Yes, and that's a good gesture.
Yeah.
But if you look at a lot of the other states in this country, once you reach 65 years old, they start lowering your taxes. I'm going to be 80 tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday.
and my taxes just keep going up. I have friends in Texas and some of these other places, in Georgia, where the taxes have cut 50%, when they reach 65. And I'm still paying the full taxes at this point. So it's hurting us on fixed income.
Sir, thanks, sir.
Mr. Chairman. Say, sir, just a quick question. Are you homesteading the property you're talking about?
This one is not a homestead. My son lives in this property.
It's not.
It's not homesteaded?
Yeah,
Okay.
not homestead
Okay.
at this point.
Okay.
But at the rate at which it's going up, it's unbelievable.
All right, thank you, sir. Next person.
That's all we have pre-signed up.
Okay, come forward, Mr. Steele.
Thank you. I think this is the first time I've ever come to the county to talk, and I want to thank you guys for doing what you do, and I know it's hard. But I got 35 phone calls today from residents that live in my district, and I'm a state house representative. Let me give you my address. It's on Bay Head Road. I don't know if I need to give you the specific address, but 30545. And so I made it a point. I actually went out, got dressed. I was outside actually putting poles in for my fence. So I got dressed and came in. So I want you guys to know it's important to me. We should do something. You got the inflationary costs that are going on. The properties are artificially inflated. We all know that. It's going to come back down as soon as Trump gets him back in office and puts forward some of the things that we need to have done to reduce the cost. So are they going to have to come back in and ask to have those values come down? In which they will. They'll have to apply. Yes, they do. I had to do it. They have to apply to have the value of their home to come back down. So the reality is we should take that step and reduce either the price of the value of the home to make it back to where it was before we inflated it, or reduce the millage rate to make it fair. I just want to also verify that we have $540 billion in reserve that we're not going to have for 18 years. We're going to be within our range. I'm sorry, not 18 years, 3 years from now to 2028. I want to verify that. And then it's a 14% increase, but we have 18% we're putting into that reserve. And I want to know how many people, well, that's what it was on the chart.
You said how many billion in no. Can you go back to that, Sean?
How much was it? Was it a million? 540 million? Sorry, 540 million.
We're required to have
Half a
like
billion.
2 months of operating in case we have a hurricane or something.
It was back the other one. Back, you just passed it twice, 3 times. Yeah, third time. 540. There you go. That's fine. So $500 million in reserve. I just want to ask, how many people do you think in our district has a reserve remotely close to 1 month of their salary? And I'm not saying we shouldn't as a government entity, but at the time we're adding 18%, and we don't need 100% of that. We should adjust what we're pulling in just to help people out. And that's why I'm here. I'm not here to condemn anybody, but I just want to make sure that you guys understand it doesn't affect me. It's not going to affect me, but it's affecting a lot of people in my community. So thank you.
Understood. Thank you for your comments.
But can I ask you a question on the reserves? Just for all of us, and I know this is your first budget meeting and your second one. In the reserves is also where you park some capital money or some money for certain things. So it's not necessarily all, I know we try and have 2 months of operating, right? If something were to happen.
Right, so we keep
All counties, all
we
cities.
keep 2 months of operating expenses in what we call a restricted reserve, and so that, yes, is your rainy day. If a hurricane comes through or whatever, we can still operate for 2 months and then hope that we get some kind of relief from the state or the feds. And then we will keep some additional based off policy direction and decision. So like an example, solid waste, we had that 7-for-7 plan, and part of that plan was building up some reserves so we could partially cash fund the waste to energy expansion and then leverage some debt service for the other piece of it. And so we built up some reserves in our utility fund, we built up some reserves in our solid waste when we know that we have those planned capital expenditures coming down, and you would see that in that $500 million number. It would be a conglomeration of both of those things.
Yeah, it's an aggregate reserve.
Right, I just wanted.
So that reserve of $540 million, the 2 months operating and these other items are in that same amount? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Oh, excuse me. Mr. Steele, you can come back.
What's in the 2 months? How much is the 2 months of it? Sorry.
Dan, what is our current general fund target reserve number right now?
It's for us and all the constitutionals.
Currently about 78 million.
For 2 months? 2 months or what?
Correct. 2 months of operating.
Okay. All right.
And we're adding 18% to that reserve every year? That was on another slide, right there, that right there, the 18%.
No, that just represents a total representative. So if I took the total amount in the general fund, and we have to report reserves as like the current dollar.
20%.
18% of that total is actually tied up in reserves. So 78 million would be 18% of that, roughly.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mike, is the number 16.7% the target number?
Yes, sir. The target, the board policy target that we discussed in January was 16.7%, which is 60
okay.
days out of 365
We're
days.
still good.
Okay. So what's the difference from that number to this number?
I'm gonna
It's
forward
currently
this.
at 20, it's currently at 22.5%, so it is higher. As I mentioned before, however, part of the planned expenditures and that we've already approved, such as D-shift for fire rescue, additional expenses, count on drawing that number down. So by 2028,
Okay.
we discussed with Commissioner Waitman, we would be down to probably around 15% or about 54 days in 2028. Based on projected expenses, projected growth, there's a number of assumptions that go into that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Waitman?
Chairman, thank you, Chairman. I guess this might be a question for county attorney, but if a local government sinks below the recommended 60-day mark, there's no penalty, right? It's just an accounting best management practice, correct? So if we were to get lean and mean and lean into it, we wouldn't necessarily be penalized if we sank below that number a bit, if we're in the best interest of our citizenry.
As I recall, this is a Gatsby standard, right? The government accounting.
Say GFOA.
GFOA.
Finance Accounting
Sorry.
Officers.
And so, no, there is no state law requirement that requires you to have that. But that all goes into your bond ratings.
Correct.
If it's not a bond, if it's not a revenue bond, an enterprise fund bond, it's just your general operating bond, it goes into the rate, the AA rating, AA plus rating that you've got. So there are side effects to lowering your reserve. It's not illegal for you to lower your
There's no
reserve.
penalty on it, so.
Correct. You may have bond or debt covenants that require certain levels.
Yeah.
Those go in and affect.
And
your
we have the
credit
best
rating and your
bond
ability to
rating.
borrow.
Yeah, we have the best bond rating right now. I think, no one?
Yes,
Double A
double A plus.
We're really high,
We can
sir.
stay there.
Double A
right?
plus. That's the best one for government.
Yeah,
If you go above that, you're putting too much money aside, and it's wasteful.
right.
So,
Which saves our citizens
I've been up
money
to
by
New York
having that
and done
bond
the
rating. Yeah. Okay, that covers the questions. Is there a motion to adopt the tentative rate with knowing we're gonna look at something coming back from staff on the 17th?
So moved.
So I got a motion?
well, second, but we're gonna have more discussion as we go.
After what? That was your discussion period.
Well,
just
we have a
did.
lot more to go through.
Okay. Okay, I got a motion and a second. All those in favor, is this roll call?
No.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All like sign for opposed? None. Pass 5-0. Move on to, so the millage rate for the general fund of 7.5700 mills. County Commission motion. Is there a motion to adopt the tentative millage rate for the Transportation Trust Fund of 0.0000 mills?
Happy to make that motion,
Me too.
Chairman.
I like a zero millage rate.
That's a good number.
Zero.
Happy to make that
Second.
motion, Chair.
Yeah.
Couldn't see that one coming.
Ms. Earl.
I will now provide a summary of the fire municipal service taxing unit budget stating the tentative millage rate, the percent. Oh,
Oh,
You got a
oh,
motion.
excuse
you
me.
got a motion and
I
a
got a motion
second.
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0.
I will now provide a summary of the fire municipal service taxing unit budget stating the tentative millage rate, the percentage change from the rollback rate, and the reasons for the change. The fire municipal service taxing unit fund has a recommended tax levy of 2.1225 mils. This represents a 7.98% increase from the rollback rate of 1.9657. The increase in property values resulted in an additional $13.1 million in property tax revenue. The budget includes implementing phase 1 of the D shift for fire personnel and a wage increase for the IAFF union. I would ask the board to accept public comment and then vote on the Fire Municipal Service Taxing Unit Fund millage rate and associated budget. The minimum vote for this tentative hearing is 4 votes.
Okay. Does anyone wish to speak to the board with the Fire Municipal Services Taxing Unit?
We have no one signed up in advance.
Okay. Seeing no one signed up. Anyone in the audience wish to speak to the Fire MSTU? Seeing no one. Is there a motion to adopt the millage rate of 2.1225 mils for the Fire Municipal Services Tax?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
for the public that's here, could we please explain what a D shift is? Because this is an increase.
Certainly. So
Okay.
the D shift in its essence, so firefighters work typically on a typical schedule, work a 24-hour shift, and then they have 48 hours off. So that represents a total of 3 shifts, right? An A shift, a B shift, and then a C shift. A D shift adds a 4th shift to that rotation. Thus, the cycle time of the firefighters in terms of rest, recovery, mental health is cared for, and there's also reductions in overtime as well as other expenditures because you have a larger force to distribute the costs over. But it does require increasing your manning by approximately, 33%.
Is someone coming up to say something?
No.
No, he's just putting on his jacket? Okay, that was the awkward start.
And then just a reminder to the board that in adding that D shift, there was also the elimination of the Kelly Day because now you didn't need it. The D shift would offset that extra rest day.
And that actual item saved us from losing 70 public safety people and fire and all during that past year. We only lost 3 this year. Years prior to that, we lost 70 personnel a year to other counties. Since we've done this, that's gone away, and now we're gaining for that shift. So, Mr. Waitman has.
Thank you, Chair. No secret, I boxed this last year. Just want to, the last year, just, the story of this, the big push for this was for wages. To make pay more whole and bring folks in, but also baked into this, there's more than just wages. There's other operating costs in technology. It's more than a funding source than just for wages. So I just wanted to be clear. I know the public thinks that it was strictly for wages and part of that movement, but there's a lot more in this. And if, Mike, I'd like you to add some sunshine on that.
Yeah, I can add
please.
some color to that. I mean, the increase in the MSTU, a large part of it was to fund D shift for work stress reduction, but also we are growing. We are the 3rd busiest ambulatory service in the state of Florida. As such, we need new equipment, we need new stations, and the MSTU works to provide funding for all of those fire-related expenses. So that would include outfitting new fire stations, and in some cases, we can actually use some of those funds to actually invest in fire stations and new equipment, new ambulances, fire trucks, et cetera.
Okay.
And with our new fire chief who combed through his budget and found a lot of savings, we appreciate that very much. And I think we are all aware that we don't have to have the prettiest, fanciest fire stations in the country, and we can get some savings on some of our new fire stations, and I appreciate all the efforts in value engineering all of that.
Yeah, I can tell you, Commissioner, Chief Perez and Mr. Murphy have already found ways to reduce fire station costs by well over $1 million on a per station basis. So that's
good.
That's
Yeah.
important.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
And
sir.
I just want to echo the same sentiment you did. We had such a high turnover rate, just like we had with deputies years ago, that this D shift has now just shifted that whole calendar. As well as our team does such a phenomenal job protecting our people. It's now to the point where they're safer, better protected, and people want to come to work here. I think we're probably the most desired station, desired county to come to work for. And that's a very good thing in these times where people are having trouble getting the services and protections they want for their lives.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. All right, Ms. Parker. Continue.
Did we do a motion?
I thought I did.
We need a motion.
Okay, move to approve.
Never take the vote.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion passed 5-0. Okay?
I will now provide a summary of the 2 new municipal service taxing unit MSTU budgets, stating the tentative millage rates, the percentage change from the rollback rate, and the reasons for the change. The Parks Capital Maintenance MSTU Fund has a recommended tax levy of 0.1712 mils. This is the first year that this millage is proposed to be levied, so there is no calculated rollback rate. This millage rate will generate $8.2 million in property tax revenue to fund capital maintenance on the county's parks. I would ask the board to accept public comment and then vote on the Parks Capital Maintenance MSTU millage rate and associated budget. Since this is the first time this millage rate will be levied, state statutes indicate that a unanimous vote is required to levy any millage rate.
Okay. Does anyone wish to speak to the board on the Parks Capital Maintenance MSTU? Come forward if you do.
Hi, my name is Janine Duffy. I live at 5550 Front Drive in Holiday, Florida. I know the parks are very important to the people that live around here, but due to the increase in taxes and homeowners insurance and the increase in everything else, we have to make cuts somewhere. I'd really like to see the Parks and Recreation get some sort of a cut. We have lots of parks around here. I understand they need some maintenance, I get that, but pretty soon we're all going to be living in them. As a single mother that helps take care of my elderly mother, you're taxing me out of my home, and I'm not the only one, but I don't want to move, so I'm going to stay and fight for it. So please hear us out. It is an election year. Thank you.
Okay. Keith, you want to come forward, but I'll make one statement there. When I was first elected 8 years ago, we were behind 20 years in maintenance on all of our parks. COVID came along, and nobody was outside, nobody could be close to each other or whatever. It gave parks the ability to catch up a lot of that maintenance we had, but it's still, the money is needed to take care of our parks. And we have future parks coming for future developments. So I'll leave it up to Keith to talk about it.
So the MSTU that's presented, so Keith Wiley, Director of Parks and Recreation and Natural Resources. This is specifically to address what Chairman Oakley called to attention, is the zero dedicated funding source for capital improvements. So the GO bond, the general obligation bond, back in 2018 got us $20 million worth of improvements. And that funding is pretty much encumbered and set to run out into the fiscal year of 25. So the MSTU is intended to pick that capital funding up and continue the good work that we did underneath the general, excuse me, the general bond, general obligation bond, sorry.
So I remember in the recession, I think I was on the school board, and we were cutting. And at the county, where they cut was parks and libraries, to the point that it was just decimated. I moved here 33 years ago, and I'm a parent of 4 kids who played sports in the parks, soccer, football, cheerleading. It was very important to us. My husband and I were youth coaches for 25 years. And if you imagine all the growth from Collier Parkway West, the first park that has been added in those 32 years is the Starkey Regional Park. In 32 years, and we're still not done with it. We are just now adding the fields. So and just think of all the kids that have moved here, and I can tell you, our phones are ringing off the hook with thousands and thousands of parents whose kids have signed up to play sports and cannot play. We we have a new Little League complex, a new Little League team, I guess, with no fields. When was the last time we added a Little League complex in this county?
So, well, we added the softball complex at Starkey Ranch.
Yeah, but what about for the boys?
20-something years.
How many?
Over 20-something years. And more importantly, to your point, Commissioner Starkey, I was actually just reviewing the capital maintenance list for the ending projects for the GO bond. And we're seeing cost increases to resurface tennis courts, $497,000. Replacing 30, 40-year-old concession stands, over $1 million. And I think that, so in addition to the growth piece of adding the capital facilities that we desperately need because of growth, we're also on the verge of not being able to actually take care of the existing stuff that we have in the ground today. So when you talk about sod or athletic fields, they don't have a forever, life. You have to replace them. And in doing so, a lot of our parks or were built in wetland environment conditions that require significant drainage improvements that cost anywhere between $1.2 to $2 million a field. So when you start to figure out ultimately it's quite honestly, it's staggering even for me to look at the numbers. And when you look at 37 parks all across the county and each little piece, the number does add up. So to be clear, I didn't actually have a presentation, wasn't prepared to talk to this in too much detail, so it's a little rough in the opening, but the MSTU basically was presented off 5 or 6 years worth of work following the general obligation bond, where we looked at 20-year maintenance plans of every park facility, and we basically itemized every amenity that was $1,000 or more, and when it was due to be replaced. We presented that through the budget process, and the $8.2 million is specifically that number, just to stay caught up, so.
One of the most memorable moments concerning parks to me was in this room when the parents from the Little League complex that's somewhere here, I've never been to it.
It's Dade City Little League.
Yeah, when those two women came and said they were turning the lights on their field on and off with the 8-foot 2x4 so they didn't get electrocuted.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we got some maintenance.
Ms. Yeager?
So I'm a mom of 5. My kids grew up at the parks. We volunteered, put clay down, clean the dugouts, things like that. I know how important parks are. I just feel like with the state of the economy right now, we can't add 2 taxes to our citizens. Is there any way that we can help parks out of our general fund and do that instead of adding a tax?
No talking from the audience, please.
Who are you talking to, Keith or Mike?
No, I was talking.
Well, I'm looking at, and it may be Amy, but I was also looking at you.
No, I mean, so, Commissioner, thank you. So currently, as I think Mr. Wiley pointed out, the dollars or the level of investment that Mr. Wiley is referring to is not currently budgeted nor available within the general fund at the levels at which was presented to the board. We currently make a very, probably 1/8 of that level of investment. And if we were to not go forward with anything, I would probably commit to the board to at least funding it at that level, which is about $1 million, $1.3 million of dollars. Of course, if we talk about reducing general operating millage, that becomes a more complicated scenario. But in the current state of play, where Mr. Wiley's current budget is, he's not budgeted for these items. So we would have to find additional dollars within our general operating fund to fund some level of maintenance in parks.
Right. I just feel like right now, we have no idea who our president's going to be, and things could be really good or not so good. So.
Okay. Mr. Wade.
Thanks, Chair. Things are tough now. We're being asked to not just, support parks. We all do. I coach, our kids go there, grew up on a lot of these same fields. But the structure, if I'm going to vote on tax, the structure of the tax is going to be sound. And this is not a sound tax for many reasons. this is approved now, we get in a budget battle in 2 weeks, we could end up gutting the Parks and Libraries budget. That's easy peasy. That's low hanging fruit. This MSTU, as it stands today, as it's structured today, thank you, Lord, does not protect a sound parks budget for years to come. And because of that, it's vulnerable. And I think if we're going to vote on a parks tax, it needs to be an all-encompassing, or as close as we can, MSTU, where we pull all those mills off the general fund and then cut those, and then the parks millage is set what it is, and cut, you know, the balance off the general fund, essentially restructuring the budget, the general fund budget. And then that parks tax is growing on its own as it comes, and it adds a true long-term generational lifeline to the department. And when times get tough and future boards have to make decisions, you know, it forced those boards, in my opinion, to have to pull back layers of the onion and make more difficult decisions other than just torpedoing the Parks and Libraries budget. I think this government needs to dig deeper and find ways to control spending in other departments that where leaks may be, if you will, or underfunding sources. So if I'm going to vote on a tax, it's going to be a good tax. It's going to be a quality tax and have a generational benefit. So as this tax stands today, I will not be supporting it. I would like to see a tax for parks, a true way to fund parks for generations to come that are similar to what I described. And this is what I tried to discuss a number of months back when we discussed the Parks MSTU. Keith, you know, it's up to every department to advocate fiercely for their department and their people, and I applaud you for it and the work that you all put in with every county department. If they didn't go to battle and try to get what you need, then you might not be the person for the job. So know that I am looking out for your best interest, just in a different way. And I thank you for all the work you do for our parks and our kids and our families. But the way this tax is structured, I can't support it.
So
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to say, Keith, you and your team do a phenomenal job. And the way you've moved money around to take care of things that weren't funded to make it happen when you had idle money, I think you've done a phenomenal job. You're a great leader, you got a great team. Thank you. Couldn't be happier with what you're doing. And the importance of parks is so critical. When you can keep kids busy and they're in activities, they're going to be more productive, better citizens, families get it better, everybody benefits from the park. Having said that, I did ask Keith, and he'll tell you, I asked him not to bring it this year. But he brought it, and then when the discussions came and it kind of went through it, I didn't kick it down, but I figured we'll just see where the process goes. Let me say this about MSTUs, and I don't like them, and I'll tell you why. Right now, you've got 91% of the population that you're looking to go fund this parks. We're working with the city of Dade City right now. We just took over Pine Hill Park and spent a whole bunch of money in Newport Richey. I got 2 cities on the west side, Port Richey, Newport Richey, that are blighted, that we have to pay them money back on the CRAs. So when you throw the burdens of an MSTU, you're burdening the county people in a heavier way, which I don't think is right. Years ago, we looked at the sheriff's MSTU that they wanted to do probably like 12, 16 years ago. The first hearing of that went through like nothing. The second hearing, one guy wrote one letter from Beacon Woods, and he said to me, he said, Jack, why are you putting all the burden on your unincorporated county to go pay for this MSTU for the sheriff? It's not the best way to go do it. So for different reasons, Commissioner Waitman, I agree with what you're saying, but MSTU is a tough way to go, and it's something we need to go look at. And again, especially when I got 2 CRAs that we got to pay, and we got a city, Newport Richey, that we just took over a park that they had and gave them a building, and now Dade City wants to work with us. I think there's a better way to fund parks as well. So I'm okay with where we're going, but I do want to see that we do take care of Keith and the parks for down the road. Mr. White.
Rebuttal. Well, we're literally at opposite ends. With an MSTU, I view an MSTU the opposite of you, Commissioner. I think an MSTU adds transparency and accountability to the fund. Citizens know what they're paying for, and we as a board know where that money's going and what it's used for, and it's not in the general fund, where it could go all over the place. So I guess it cuts both ways. I view an MSTU a little bit differently. I view an MSTU in government as more of it's better discipline. I think, in my opinion, there's better accountability and transparency to the fund. But I hear what you're saying and appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman?
Keith, I've got a question. Keith, come up.
Can I just make a statement to that, though, if I could?
You what?
Can I just make a statement to what you just said?
Just make a statement.
So, in the transparency we used to have years ago, there was a booklet about this thick. It went line item to line item where the money was going. So maybe if you want the transparency that way, that's a better way to go than shifting the burden who's paying.
Okay, Keith, prior to this MST, you've been actually getting a sum of money, I guess, from the general fund.
Yeah, correct. So every budget year, there's been a process where those departments that need to pursue capital funding, we would go through a list and a ranking process, and quite honestly, the amount of money that's available, I always felt terrible going to those meetings because what I was asking for was usually 2 or 3 times what was available. So when you're in there and you're sitting next to a peer like Mike Shoemate for Animal Services, and he's asking for X million for a shelter, and I need, for my department to maintain my level of service, $8 to $10 million extra a year, it's kind of rough. So through that process, or through that education, if you will, we try to figure out another way. And to be clear, it's my job, I think Commissioner Waitman, it's my job to tell you all what the cost is. How we get there, honestly, is up to you. And I want you to know that I respect that decision.
So if this doesn't go through, and it looks like it's not going to go through, then we have issues in the near future probably that we won't be able to allow some teams to play because we're not going to have enough teams
Or safe fields.
or spaces for them to fit on.
Yeah, at this point, it'd be more of that unplanned where you have no money set aside to take care of, an emergency. You wouldn't have anything to go to.
So if you step back in time a little bit, when did we have the referendums that our citizens voted on?
2018.
When? 18?
Yes, sir, 18.
I thought that was right. 2018, this county has some of the best citizens around that voted for that and to pay those bond issues and voted. That's how we got the money to actually bring that maintenance back up to speed. But our citizens voted for that. I agree with what they did then. We have good citizens. They have very good citizens.
I think it was the most popular
73%.
bond. Our citizens were willing
At the same
to
time,
pay
they
for it.
had 4 items. At the same time, they had 4 items for voting for a referendum where we would pay those bonds back through the citizens. They voted for those, but they were also given one item that gave them an additional $50,000 deduction on homesteaded property that was turned down by citizens when they could have voted that in for themselves. They did not, but they voted on referendum to help make these fields come back up to speed.
So Keith, what is your maintenance budget? What are you gonna do? How are you gonna fix anything? Because you don't have this in your budget, because you were counting on the MSTU.
Well, after tonight, we'll reprioritize our.
So that means
Yeah.
how many millions are gonna be cut from the sheriff or the fire or whatever else that comes out of our general?
We have to sit down and.
They have to sit down and go over that.
Look at the dollars and where it is. We've put money into other programs such as reinvesting in our facilities. We could look at less funding there. I mean, there's a number of options. I just need to understand what the board's temperament is, and I think I
Well, it's
understand.
not mine.
Right.
No, I just think that it's been such a deficit for so long, and if we're not paying it out of our other taxes, we have to find a way to keep our kids safe on the ball fields. And
Right.
I remember driving around and seeing the stadiums falling apart. People couldn't sit in the stadiums at the ballparks. The nets behind home plate were ripped and torn. Wasn't a pretty sight. So what do you need a year to, what are you gonna be looking for from somewhere?
The average is what was presented as 8.2 million. And I think when I originally presented the
Where are we getting
ordinance, when I originally presented the ordinance, we gave tiers because obviously we want the board to have choices in terms of what could be done. again, just, it's all about perspective in terms of what comes online every year and what's needed, and more importantly, what goes down that's an issue. We had Oak Ridge Park, the lighting system went down, it's $700,000. Now, we could tell the organization that plays there that, sorry, we don't, I mean, in this instance, we'd have to say, sorry, we don't have that funding, so we don't repair the lights for a year, we shut your league down. I'm not trying to, I'm just being honest, like those are the things that come up.
could happen.
The grass at Mitchell Field, which is
It
gone.
happened actually last year, so when that happened, luckily we had some reserves in the Go Bond Fund, so we were able to kind of make that happen. But,
Right.
again, that money's kind of running out, so.
And with fields being tight like they are, you're gonna reach a point where your fees are gonna have to go back up, or you won't be able to provide maintenance for these areas.
Yeah.
And that hits every home when that fee goes up, so.
Would any of the commissioners consider a lower MSTU number so that Keith can keep operating?
I was going to ask that question.
Yeah,
Sorry,
because
Miss-
I hate to take it away from the youth that's already had it taken away from them.
Yeah.
That's kind of not fair. You got parents choosing to put groceries in a buggy or sending their kids out to play sports right now. You measure wants and needs. And I'm pretty passionate about that. And I know the fields my parents grew up on, a lot tougher than my generation and the generations after me. We got county attorney. We're in a sue-happy world, but I think we'll make it. I think we'll figure it out. Government will. There's only business on the planet that has reoccurring revenue, every year. And a lot of money comes in. I have full confidence, just like last year with Mike Fasano coming in and covering the shortfall in the sheriffs. I think we need to challenge ourselves. And this is a situation that we're in. Every household in this county in America is figuring out a way to pay their grocery bill, put clothes on their back. And this is part of it. And again, this goes to prove my point. You're right. To Keith's budget, why this MSTU and why his budget isn't safe and sound. Therefore, I'm describing structuring a different way to capture funds for the parks budget. What I just described 15 minutes ago, I don't want to rehash it again. We have other things to talk about. That goes to show how vulnerable his budget is, and this is proving my point.
Feels pretty vulnerable sitting here, for sure. That's right.
So,
Just for the record.
so
Just to add a little brevity to this.
Does it take 4 votes or 3 votes?
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Oh, well, it's good.
We haven't had a
There's
motion
no
yet,
number
but we're
that
not
you would
done. We're not
accept.
there yet.
And the final vote needs to be unanimous. You could move it forward, but, I mean, the adoption of the millage has to be unanimous based on.
On this one?
Discuss it.
Yes,
Has to be a
based
5-0?
on, yeah.
Doesn't matter how you vote. So,
What, if it takes 5 votes and you're against it, then
The rules, you
Yeah.
can make a motion and move
Okay.
it forward, but it won't be.
what does
All
that mean, that you can take a vote and move it forward?
Well,
I mean, I want to
you would
discuss a lower number.
You would
try
adopt the millage as recommended or some other form of the millage that would be lower or the same as what is presented, and then on the
it
17th.
can be changed on September
You would vote.
17th.
However, from what I'm hearing from the commissioner, I'm not sure that would be work that I would recover anything from, so.
So you fall into the provision of the statute that this is a rate in excess of 110% of the, a rate in excess of 110% may be adopted if approved by a unanimous vote of the membership of the governing board of the county. So, but that's your final hearing adoption.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
In other words,
but
it doesn't sound like we're getting there.
Right.
So. Keith, there's a lady behind you that needs to speak. Ms. Zimmer, I believe. Just name and address again.
It's on the record, Christy Zimmer, Pinecone Court. My question is this. We have the penny for Pasco, which is a substantial amount that was approved for 15 years. The county gets the 45%, and out of that, 20% goes to ELAMP Parks and Recreation Infrastructure. How is that money being implemented into what you're talking about? Isn't that enough money for maintenance?
that's a capital
amount.
infrastructure tax.
So it goes
For
toward
only
cap-
building new, not for
That's-
maintenance?
That's a capital
Perfect.
infrastructure tax,
Yeah.
yes.
Only building you.
He
And
has
then-
no maintenance money.
There is no maintenance,
Well, he has the go bond, but it's almost gone. That's the problem.
Yeah.
There's no maintenance money. So something else
Okay.
will be cut.
All right, so, let's see, is there a motion on the millage rate of 0.1712 mils for parks, capital maintenance, MSTU? Looks like it's going to die for lack of a motion.
In that case, I would probably recommend that the board adopt a motion to set the millage at 0.0000 mils, so we can then
Okay.
move forward.
So moved.
So we got a motion to drop the mills to 0.0000 mils for the parks, capital maintenance, MSTU. Okay.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Motion fails.
What'd you say? You got 1, 2 nays?
No, I voted aye, but she voted nay.
I voted nay.
You voted nay.
It's a zero fund parks maintenance budget. I voted nay.
Okay. So that motion passes 4-1. So, okay.
Clarification, Mr. Chairman, you said the motion for zero funding passed 4-1?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And further clarification from the county attorney, it cannot be brought back at this final public hearing.
The millage can't be raised, that's right.
Oh, at the next meeting. Okay. All right.
The Roads Rehabilitation MSTU Fund has a recommended tax levy of 0.5184 mils. This is the first year that this millage is proposed to be levied, so there is no calculated rollback rate. This millage rate will generate $24.8 million in property tax revenue to maintain the county's roadwork network. I would ask the board to accept public comment and then vote on the Roads Rehabilitation MSTU millage rate and associated budget.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak to this item on MSTU?
Yep.
We have no one signed up in advance.
No one signed up? Anyone in the audience wish to speak to the paving MSTU? Okay. You have a question? You? No. Jack, were you wanting to speak?
I'm waiting to listen.
Okay. Mr. Waitman? Any discussion?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm willing to support a level of MSTU for this MSTU. But to do that, it's got to come to a commensurate cut to the general fund mills. So I'm assuming that box and match will go down at the second meeting, but I'm willing to support some level of funding for the road paving MSTU. It's necessary. It's actually a piece of the business the county should be in my opinion, in paving and maintaining our roads. And so I'm excited to hear what folks have to say and where we land on this.
Well, we've asked, there's no one to speak to this, so.
Sure, I will, but I have questions when they answer. Again, my name is Janine Duffy, 5550 Front Drive, Holiday, Florida. I'm a little confused. We've been paying taxes for years, but our roads are severely neglected. I'm not sure where it's getting paid from. Is it my property taxes? Is it the gas tax that's supposed to help the roads? Is it the millage, the new millage rate? I'm kind of getting confused how many times we have to pay for roads that aren't being fixed. I mean, a sinkhole opened up in Holiday. We have severe flooding. You made it worse by adding a sidewalk to Grand Boulevard. I drive through a pool in our afternoon showers now. It wasn't like that years ago.
Okay.
Was not. Actually, it wasn't even like that last year. All this flooding is current.
Right.
So I'm just curious to know what exactly is paying for our roads and our infrastructure. Is it the impact fees? Is it our property taxes? Is it the gas tax? Is it the millage rate? I'm trying to grasp and understand what exactly is fixing our roads, because nothing is.
I'll give you an answer.
Thank you.
The MSTU for this is 0.5184 mils.
Okay.
That's $51.84 for every $100,000 of value of a homesteaded home.
Okay.
Okay? So the mean value of homes throughout the county are roughly $160,000. If you have less than that, it is. But that number equates to about $80 or $85 to go toward paving of roads for the entire county, not just like a PVAS at all. We're getting rid of PVAS because it costs your neighbors fighting each other and there's other things. This does away with PVAS, but this, this rate will get us roads being paved a lot quicker than we have before, because there'll be no bickering between communities. And if everybody says 51% say they don't want to pay, and so they vote it down, then that road stays like it is in bad condition or whatever until you have to wait a year after that to get your road paved. That's been a bad system, and we've been in it for a long, long time.
So you're blaming the old system on the neglect? Is that what I'm gathering?
Because a lot of roads they would vote against. I'm not blaming it on anyone. In fact,
no, I'm saying the old system, your old taxing system. You're blaming that on
the old system of paying for a road was really unfair, because the people that, if you were less than 50% of the people on that road, and say you voted 49% of you wanted a road paved, and the group against you didn't want to pay, and it was 51%, then it didn't get paved and had to sit there for a year.
Well,
and it's done that year after year after year on a lot of properties, and we got a lot of bad roads throughout the county for it. This also includes roads that can be paved when they're even dirt. They could be paved if they fit in that order. And I think within 2 or 3 years, we'll have a lot of roads that have been a long time waiting to get paved.
Agreed.
Now, I understand we have people that are seniors and on fixed income, and this is money. I understand this is money. What I pay, I meant to look at my sheet. It's on your tax sheet now. On mine, it's probably $400, $500 that I'd pay every year, one time a year, every year, to get all of our roads paved.
Okay, so that's the only way our roads get paved?
If it was yours.
So there's no penny for Pasco funds that go towards it? There's no money from impact fees that goes towards it?
There's never been, but Mr. Kabbalah can answer part of it.
I'm just trying to get clarification.
Oh, I understand, yeah.
Sure. So, and it would be first, let me just back up as to the types of roads.
Yeah.
There's really 2 types of roads. There are local
State
roads,
roads,
which would be your
county
roads that you live on. And then there would be what we call arterial or collector roads, notwithstanding state roads. We'll take state roads like 54, 52 out of this, because those are funded by the state. We collect gas taxes in the county. That funds our public works department. Gas taxes really only cover about 2/3 of the cost of our public works department. That is a revenue source that has been flat to declining for years as cars become more efficient and electric cars, but I really won't go there. The additional 1/3 of the public works budget comes from what's called a TIF, or a tax increment financing, which is levied across the whole county. And anyways, it's a long way of just saying it's a dedicated funding source on new taxes that come in, that is put into public works to fund paving. Now, how do we fund paving? We fund it from this TIF, which really only amounts to a few $1 million a year, maybe somewhere between $2 to $4 million a year, more or less.
Okay.
But because we have a special assessment vehicle, this is the PVAS that the chairman was speaking about, we don't use it to fund local roads. We use it to fund things like if we were to pave Little Road, for example, or another main road that everyone would use in the neighborhood. The road that you live on, under the current system, is a special assessment, in which case the residents would have to petition the board to tax them in order to fix the roads. So there is no general revenue that goes into fixing local roads. It is up to you as a citizen to decide when you've had enough on your road, and you can appeal to the board, and there's a whole special assessment process. So the commissioner has spoken, and the board has recognized it pits neighbor against neighbor, and unfortunately, by the time the road requires to be repaired, I can tell you I'm a professional engineer. It's like we talk about maintenance. The road's too far gone, and it's probably 6 times more to fix it, so folks are levied with a higher assessment. What the road tax does is it is collected taxes for all roads in the county, arterials, collectors, as well as local roads, and includes actually a large component of it is maintenance of roads to extend the useful life of the roads. That is really the purpose of the tax, is to extend the life of the existing roads and provide a dedicated funding source for that, and make repairs, and of course do away with the unwind the special assessment process. I know that's a lot instead of.
No, that's okay.
Essentially what it is.
Just to clarify, our taxes in the past, none of that was allocated towards.
None of that was for roads.
Okay.
You heard us, one of the first funds or votes that we did, it might have been the second one, was the transportation, what's it called? The Transportation Trust Fund, where that would be the silo of money that we would, because when we collect money, it all goes into certain silos in government, and our transportation silo is 0 funded through your ad valorem property tax.
Right.
It's 0 funded. But we are gonna fund it through this MSTU.
But so you know.
So you're not paying any taxes.
So when
towards
somebody
roads.
says to me,
this
what am
new
I paying my
paving-
property taxes for if I'm not getting my roads fixed, they need to be clearly informed that
Right.
their property taxes never went to fixing.
Never
them.
went
It never
to
did.
transportation.
It never
That,
did.
I got
And it goes back in
clarification.
history, and history had it, over here was a lot of groves and pastures and things like that, but Newport Ritchie and all were growing leaps and bounds and building a lot of roads over there, where the property owners over on this side, mostly farmers, agricultural people, didn't want to afford or couldn't afford to pay for those roads being built on the other side of the county.
Right,
So
right.
that stayed in history until now, and we've all realized, I've been here 8 years now, I hate a PVAS. I mean, it's just the worst system ever.
It's awful. And you would be
It
paying
puts
thousands
one
of
neighbor
dollars.
after another,
Thousands of dollars.
and it doesn't work out good.
Well, please
With this-
understand that most people, the general public, believe that their property
I
taxes
know.
go into paying for their roads.
And we know that. Yes,
Okay.
we know that, but that's not true, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
well,
PVAS,
maybe
we
get the
hear that.
information out there
We
better.
hate PVAS
Now, see,
hearings.
when you do a PVAS, a lot of times that cost to you would be $7,000, $8,000
Per
that you
house.
can pay over 10 years. But with the new system, if you're paying, say your house is on the lower scale and it was $85 a year, that's all you'd pay every year.
Right, I understand.
But
And
on
for
the
all
PVAS,
roads would be in good
for
shape.
10 years, that part you couldn't pay up front.
I don't know.
Would
Just before I end, take away one thing. When we are over by the 19 corridor,
Right.
find ourselves being surrounded by lots of development that have brand-new roads, nice sidewalks.
Right.
And all of that,
I
please
agree.
understand the frustration of the people that have lived here for
Oh,
decades.
and I agree with you. We have them over here. This is my district on the east side.
Okay,
I've got some of the worst roads you've ever seen, but
just
let me
please
give you
keep
this
all that in
example.
mind.
And
This
what- and-
new
and-
let me give an example. This new system, a lady called me or saw me in a restaurant here the other day and says, well, when would my road be paved on this new paving system? And I said, well, I don't know. And she was asking about Pasadena Road, just right out here. And a question, and I called our people. And it's set up to be paved, if this goes through, that road is set up to be paved in 25, which starts October 1.
Who said? I haven't seen the list.
You have to ask
There's a
questions.
metric system.
I'll let you know who to talk to. But the fact of it is, I was shocked. It not only repaves the old part of pavement, part of that road is dirt. And it paves that too. It brings it all up.
Right.
Which it'll take a little time to get everybody, but the fact of it is, by starting it, you get in a good situation in the future, and it's just better for everybody. So,
Well, I hope you could take a drive over to Holiday during a rainstorm.
yeah.
I just went through
Well,
there.
that's her district. So.
And the other good thing that this is gonna do, which we did not do in the past, is we're also gonna fix the sidewalks, which they'll, in Holiday.
Well, that
there's a
becomes
lot
a
of
problem
complex
because the
sidewalks.
flooding is so severe.
Yeah.
you're adding more concrete and it's making it worse. So
Yeah.
please
Well, I'm
consider
talking
that.
about
We
the
need
settings-
drainage. We
the
need
settings-
drainage.
The sidewalks that are there that are all smashed up, that
Yeah.
need to be fixed.
Okay.
We need drainage with the sidewalk.
Yeah, thank you for asking the questions. So,
Thank you for answering them. Christy Zimmer on record. You tapped on my question a little bit. How are these projects going to be prioritized? And you said the one in Pasadena would be 2025. Lake Padgett Estates hasn't had any paving done since the early 90s with a road paving assessment, and we've lost some of our
I'm
roads.
I'm
They're
fixing to
dirt.
give you a guy that is gonna come up here and tell you the truth about all this, because it's scientific. See, some roads we have, so you know, some roads are not as bad as other roads. So those roads that we can actually do a chip seal, that road can lengthen its life by doing the chip seal. It'll lengthen it out 5 years and improve that road. Other roads that are really in bad shape are going to be
Completely
more
deteriorated.
expensive and have to be paid.
So do they get put on the back burner because they'll cost more?
No, they're all looked at electronically. I'm gonna let Bramford come forward, and he will describe to you, or Justin will want one of them. So, but it's very important,
That's
so.
your fault, Megan.
Bradford Atunwa, Assistant County Administrator. So we've talked about having a scientific method. That means we've tested all the roads in Pasco, and we've used our pavement management system to rank all those roads. So what we have is roads that is going to be cost effective to fix in the first year or the second year. We go ahead and schedule those to be done. So we try to do that as objectively as possible. So we are being fair to everybody.
Right. And they're balanced out in 5 districts, 5 commissioner districts. We
Yes.
all get some of our roads done. It's gonna take time, but I'm gonna tell you, with this new system, it's gonna be much better than anything you've seen in the county as far as paving the roads that everybody's asking, why can't I get my road paved? Even dirt roads will be a part of that system.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And part of the benefit too is when you have to do all the paperwork, all the time and money to go do your petitions and all the stuff, you probably add about 30% to the cost of the road as well. Now that all goes away, it's just simply collected and allocated.
So back to Commissioner Waitman's question, and I don't know if you're ready to answer it, because I think we found a way to lower that MSTU by taking some of the money from the library and paying off the debt. So since he wants a number possibly now, are we able to throw out a number where we can lower that a little bit?
What was the $6 million number?
Chairman, for clarification, Mike, why don't we go with this conversation first that we spoke about? So, my question to County Attorney, Administrator, Finance folks, does the road paving MSTU need a unanimous vote tonight to pass? And does it need a unanimous vote to pass at our second and final public hearing? It has to have 2 consecutive 5-0 votes.
That is correct. It would require a unanimous vote to establish some millage. There's the recommended millage or some other number.
I disagree with the administrator, but
County
I mean,
Attorney.
as I said in the
No,
previous
Attorney
one, I read the statute to say at this hearing, it doesn't have to pass at a unanimous vote. But you have to adopt it by a unanimous vote, unless you heard something different from Revenue.
I'll let Mr. Rizzola,
So,
who spoke with Department of Revenue.
The
and
follow-up
General Counsel.
question to that.
Well,
Let's
because
go
I
ahead.
haven't had the conversation with Revenue that OMB has had.
There's 2 forms that we have to fill out that ask us for the number of votes, and that's MMP, which is maximum millage for this hearing, and then the MM, which is the maximum millage for the final hearing. Both of those say 5 votes are required.
I don't believe that's what the statute says, but if that's the standard that Revenue is going to hold you to.
That's got to be confirmed to me somehow, because my agreement to doing this is the 7.57 mils that we previously voted on for the general fund. I want to see a commensurate cut to that. So we're going to have to open up the general fund mills and vote on it a second time. So do we go through all that tonight and potentially have 2 late nights, or can we go through, because we'll stay late, y'all know it. Or can we do it all in Newport Richey at one time?
So our recommendation would be to kind of hold here, and then we can do math before the final hearing in a less rushed fashion and more accurate, and we can work through
So
the
hearing
minutia.
you and not hearing confidence out of our county attorney doesn't give me confidence that we're following the right process here.
I think what the county attorney is saying, and Jeff, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, is he's saying tonight, only, he doesn't, his interpretation of the statute is a unanimous vote is not required tonight. However, a unanimous vote is required to final adoption on the 17th.
And general fund bills can be opened back up and discussed.
And then you can also, at that, yes, sir, we would go through the
Okay.
same discussion on the general operating millage, and if the board wanted to adopt that, the vote thresholds are different, of course, for the general operating millage, but nevertheless, that would be a discussion that the board would have.
So Commissioner, tonight you're gonna have the ceiling set that you can't increase, but for the final, you can still come down on the 17th.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, is I believe that it's the final vote that matters, and if you didn't vote for it on the final vote, that would kill it. It has to be unanimous. So it doesn't, I would recommend staying at the millage that we've advertised, and you've always got the authority, the power to turn it down at the final hearing.
My non-legal opinion, I agree with the county attorney, but Department of Revenue did give us a different answer.
Attorney, I was still not do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And I'm going to go back to, I would rather see it come lowering the MSU down. And this doesn't have to happen until the next meeting, but I'd rather lower the MSU down, leaving the millage where it's at.
See.
For the same reason I told you, 91% of the county is going to pay for these roads. Remember, a lot of the money that's coming from this is paying for arterials too, which everybody in the cities uses, but no one's going to pay for it, just the county people. And I think it should be shared with everybody as much as possible.
Well, no matter what the number, the fund will be funded where before there was nothing. So no matter what we decide on.
But there wasn't PVAS.
We're moving forward.
But there was a PVAS.
PVAS is dangerous because the county can lien people's homes and take their property from them. That system is just bad.
Horrible.
It's just a bad system.
Yeah.
But we're moving forward, so we'll get there.
So everybody understands, we move this number down, a certain number, then you have to realize, and the public has to realize, that you won't be able to pave as much each year unless that's back up sometime. But if you lower it, it takes longer to get to your roads.
We already kind of pushed it out, so it wouldn't be high. We
Yeah.
pushed it out.
Yeah, we already stretched it out with this lower number, so.
We have not made a decision yet, right, Chair, on how we're going to fund the remaining PVAS loans. That hasn't been decided yet. So, I mean, there's still, as Mike Caballo say, it's in the sausage making.
Right,
That we're not there yet, right? So, you know.
But do you want to set this millage lower than the 0.5184? Do you want to set that lower to go, or do you want them to come back with a number where you feel comfortable? I thought I heard Jack saying he would like to see it reduced. Is that right?
But I'm comfortable leaving it where it is now, just to go through and let's see what staff brings back to us, and we can dissect it next week.
I agree.
And do it at the end?
Okay.
Yeah, let them bring back options, no pressure.
We can't go back up.
Yeah.
You never know how tough stuff is going to be.
And you never know that counties might be able to work their magic. A little from the library, a little bit here.
Mr. Starkey has steaks back here, so I'm good for a while.
It's not cooked, but you're welcome to it if you get really hungry. Just once a
Okay.
week.
All right, is there a motion by the board to adopt a millage rate of 0.5184 mils for the roads rehabilitation MSTU. And it takes 5 votes.
Yeah, and we pledge to cut it when we find out
Right.
what that number is.
I'm in agreement with doing that. Yeah.
I think that's an easy.
I'll make a motion.
County Attorney, are you sure?
Sure.
Am I sure that
Are
you
you
have?
advising us the right way, that we're not
He
boxing
is.
ourselves in a corner, that way we can still
He is.
do some work before
He's
the
like
next
all my
budget year?
other attorney friends. They told me not
Yeah.
to act like an attorney, so I don't.
I am confident that if you levy, if you move ahead the 0.5184 mils, you have complete authority at your next hearing to lower that or eliminate it.
And the general operating mills of
And
7.5.
And you're at the same, you've got that same discussion on the general millage at your next hearing as well.
See, attorneys
That I'm comfortable with.
attorneys are human. Trust but verify. It's kind of the way. All right, so I'll second Commissioner Yeager's motion.
Okay. I've got a motion and a second to leave it as it is. We're going to relook at it on September 17th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. It passes 5-0. Okay?
I will now provide a summary of the 9 voter-approved debt service millage rates. These millage rates are levied to repay the debt service for the general obligation bonds to include 2 tranches each for the jail project, the parks and recreation projects, and the libraries projects, as well as 3 tranches for the fire rescue projects. The 9 individual millage rates are listed on Table 1 in your handout. Rather than read this chart into the record, we have provided copies to each commissioner, board records, and members of the audience. I ask the board to accept public comment and then vote on each debt service millage rate. There is no vote requirement for these millage rates, so a simple majority or 3 votes is needed.
Okay. All right. Does anyone wish to speak to the board regarding any of the 9 bond millage rates? Anyone? Okay, seeing no one. Any discussion here with the board?
Anyone online?
Nobody's online, right?
No, we have no one
No
on.
one online.
Seeing no one, move approval?
Second.
You
Wait a
need
minute.
one for each,
Oh, one by- okay.
each
Oh,
village, so.
is there a motion to adopt a millage rate of 0.0256 mils for the 2019 A jail facility bond?
Move approval?
Got a
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. Is there a motion to adopt a millage rate of 0.0204 mils for the 2019 B fire rescue bond?
So moved.
Got a
Second.
motion? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. Is there a motion to adopt the millage rate of 0.0096 mils for the 2019 C Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources bond?
Move approval.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. Is there a motion to adopt the millage rate of 0.0, gotta be sure of these zeros,
Yep.
94 mils for the 2019 D libraries bond?
I think you need to
So-
restate that, sir. You lost a 0.
0.00094 mils.
Now,
Thank
sir,
you.
one more time.
Yep.
0.0094.
That's what, 0.0094 mils for the 2019 libraries bond.
Second?
Got a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. Is there a motion to adopt millage rate of 0.0416 mils for the 2020A fire rescue bond.
So moved.
You got a motion?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. Is there a motion to adopt a millage rate of 0.0? I'm sorry, but this is faint typing they gave me here. 0.0087 mils for the 2021A libraries bond.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. Is there a motion for adopting a millage rate of 0.1073 mils for the 2021B jail bond?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passed 5-0. Is there a motion to adopt the millage rate of 0.0131 mils for the 2022A Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources bond?
Move approval.
Motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Is there a motion to adopt a millage rate of 0.0044 mils for the 2024A fire rescue bond?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. Ms. Farrell.
All right. I will now provide a summary of the remainder of the budget. If you refer to Table 2 in your handout, the budget total did change. My team just calculated it, so I'll read in the new number, so that will be a variation from the table that's been provided, but based off of the 0 mils levied for the Parks Capital Maintenance MSTU, we recalculated the budget and the aggregate millage. So I just wanted to point out that what I'm stating is going to be a change from what you see. So the budget totals $2,254,748,117. I would ask the board to accept public comment, then vote on the tentative budget. There is no vote requirement for the budget, so a simple majority or 3 votes is needed.
Okay, does anyone here wish to speak to the budget?
Seeing no one, move approval.
Second.
Okay. Where we at? Oh, I got the inverse. So I got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, the actions you have taken today has set the tentative aggregate millage at 10.1056 mils, which reflects an increase of 9.61% above the rolled back rate. I will now read the resolution adopting the millage rates by title only. A resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Pasco County, Florida, adopting the tentative levying of ad valorem taxes for Pasco County for fiscal year 2025, providing for an effective date.
Okay, is there a motion for approval of the resolution adopting the tentative levying of ad valorem taxes for Pasco County for fiscal year 2025?
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
I will now read the resolution adopting the budget by title only. A resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Pasco County, Florida, adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 2025, providing for an effective date.
Okay. Is there a motion for approval of the resolution adopting the tentative budget for Pasco County fiscal year 2025?
Move approval.
Got a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Any changes made between now and the final public hearing will be detailed in a memorandum which will be provided to you with your agenda for the regular meeting on September 17th. Staff recommends the board provide direction prior to the final public hearing regarding any additional amendments to the tentative budget as a result of the memorandum mentioned above and any other amendments the board desires. These changes can then be incorporated into the resolutions for the public hearing of September 17th.
Okay. This concludes the tentative public hearing. With that,